Ocean Story is with you, and I have new stories that touch me. My brother told me this story a month ago, so a lot of time has passed and I can tell this story. My younger brother Jose is now divorced from his ex-wife. Actually, Jose broke up with that girl over 7 months ago, but he never started looking for a new girlfriend. Jose was in no hurry to look for a new girlfriend because the wound from his past relationship was still hurting. One day, when I was sitting with Jose over a cup of coffee in my apartment, he said, "I dumped my girlfriend last week, right in the pizzeria." I started asking how it happened. Jose started from the very beginning of their relationship. My brother has a friend with whom he often goes to the pool. There he met a girl named Alexa who looked very attractive. One day after a swimming session, he met Alexa at the exit and he said that she had great swimming technique. That's how their short relationship started. On the spot, they exchanged contacts and started texting every day. They corresponded so often that even Jose started to get distracted from his work. He didn't go to the pool that often to have communication with Alexa on a regular basis, which is why online correspondence was a good solution to get to know each other better. Jose said the first 2 days of our conversations with Alexa were very primitive, but after 3 days, I started to learn a lot of interesting things about her. Alexa loved to watch movies based on real events, and Alexa also liked to spend time reading. This made me laugh because my brother never reads books and plays the smart guy. I apologized to Jose and asked him to continue. Jose said, "This girl likes to listen to symphony music and think about life." Simply put, my brother said, Alexa is like me, or she is the girl who could become a reliable partner for him. I asked, if everything was so great, what happened then? Jose put a lot of coffee in his mouth, and after 4 seconds, he continued his story. After 2 weeks of online conversations with Alexa and a few short meetings at the pool, I thought it was time to invite Alexa out. I couldn't think of anything better than to go to my favorite place that serves delicious pizza and many other dishes. And this decision turned out to be one of the stupidest for me. We were scheduled to meet at 8 o'clock in the evening. As I had a lot of work to do that week, I arrived 5 minutes earlier than Alexa. Surprisingly, she was almost on time. I wasn't very hungry because I had taken a lot of lunches at work, but I decided to order a small salad for $13. I probably ordered it so that part of my table would not be empty. But as for Alexa, she started ordering dishes as if she hadn't eaten anything for 3 days. Alexa orders now include not only light dinners, but also full meals. Alexa ordered pasta with mushrooms and a large piece of salmon with 2 different salads. And Alexa also ordered a glass of champagne. To be honest, even my dad can't eat that much food in one sitting, even though my dad eats a lot. My brother said, when I saw how much this girl ordered, I felt a little uncomfortable that I only had a small plate of salad on my side, so I decided to ignore it and start a conversation with Alexa. To my surprise, her words weren't as intelligent and gentle as they had been a few days ago when I had messaged her on Instagram. It was as if I was sitting with a completely different person. I decided that I had been at work a bit too much, so that's why I think that. But I decided to be sure of my thoughts, so I asked Alexa which movie she thought had a more interesting and intense plot. She started telling me about a movie that for me was one of the worst I've ever seen. I thought it was a bad question, so I just changed the subject. We started talking about nothing important, and our conversation became so empty and uninteresting. I thought it would be more interesting to talk to our grandfather who has autism. When we got our Alexa order, the whole table was covered in food. She started saying that it was very strange that I didn't want to eat anything. I told her that I had been working very hard and just didn't feel hungry. But Alexa was so happy to see the food that she just listened to my answer and asked me to repeat it. For the first few minutes after the food was on the table, Alexa didn't ask me any questions or topics of conversation. She just pounced on the food and started eating like an animal. Alexa didn't even use any of the utensils. She just started eating with her hands. I began to realize that such a girl was not a good match for me. In fact, it was hard for me to talk to her all the time, and I felt a certain heaviness. I stood up at the table and told her, "Alexa, I don't feel very comfortable being with you today. Our correspondence was much more interesting than this dinner. I'd better go home and get some sleep before the weekend. I just got up and walked away. Alexa tried to stop me, saying that she needed to eat a lot to talk first. But such arguments don't work for me. And I just kept walking to the exit. I said to my brother, "Dude, you're cruel." Personally, I think that my brother jumped to conclusions about this girl too soon. Jace, I completely understand what your brother did. I'm glad that Joe's acted like a true gentleman and told Alexa straight up that he wasn't interested in her. Your brother may have looked very rude, but he did the right thing. After all, I know banal stories from my friends when they or girls who were on dates with them just ran away without even saying anything, and such actions are really not pleasant. So I can say that your brother has honor and respect for other people. Josephine, what an asshole your brother is. He didn't even give Alexa a chance. Maybe she had health problems and needed the strength to be there, and your brother just decided to walk out of the date based on that impression. Why do people in the comments think that Joe's acted well? Just think about it. Joe's walked out of the date just because Alexa ordered a lot of food for a girl. This guy has very stereotypical thoughts about girls. In your brother's opinion, Alexa should have ordered the same amount of salad as he did, and Alexa should have been very modest. But what are these formalities for? If Alexa will behave like this, after months of a more serious relationship, your brother didn't like that Alexa ate with her hands. But isn't it more important to eat the way you want to? I think your brother is a proud asshole. Leonardo, I think your brother just got scared when he got into an uncomfortable situation, so he decided to leave. Or maybe Alexa just wanted to have a big meal and leave the bill on Jose or split it in half. But in any case, Alexa wanted to get a discount on her meal at the expense of another person. I don't like it when people think more about money and food than about the dinner itself. These are some of the good reasons why I'm not in a relationship right now. Women can be very strange sometimes, but guys are no better. Relationships are very complicated, and it's not a good idea to jump to conclusions overnight. A story that really surprised me. I'm 23 years old now, and I found a wonderful girl, Emery, who is 2 months younger than me. Now Emery and I are engaged to be married, and we are planning to have our wedding, not at home or in a cafe, but outdoors. We think it would be nice to have a wedding somewhere near the water. There is a small lake in our city where we can camp and make a nice place for the celebration. My parents think that this idea is very bad and that we should celebrate the marriage in standard ways, like our great-grandparents did. I told my mom and dad many times that we had already decided on Emery, but they still didn't like our decision. At one point, my dad started to rebel and said he didn't want to go anywhere, but now he has calmed down a bit and agreed to attend the party. It is very important to me that my parents are there to celebrate my marriage to Emery. There was only 1 month left before our wedding. My dad started saying again that he didn't like our idea. I didn't have the strength left to prove to him that our decision with Emery would not be changed because of his opinion. My dad started pushing guilt and saying, "I've been raising you all these years, and now you're so grateful." I had a hard time saying anything to my dad about this argument. I respect my parents very much and don't say anything rude to them. But in this situation, my dad crossed a line that should have been respected. I sent the following words to my dad when I spoke to him on the phone the next time: "If you don't want to go celebrate my wedding on the lake or in nature, you don't have to come. We'll manage just fine without you." My dad was very angry and said that I grew up to be a shit who doesn't respect his parents. My mom is forcing me to apologize to my dad and organize a new place for the wedding ceremony. I also refused my mom's request. Now I feel like a freak for yelling at my dad and being rude to my mom. The worst started when there were a few weeks left before the ceremony. I have a younger sister, Julia, who is now 16 and lives with my parents. Of course, I invited all my close relatives to my wedding. Julia was very happy that her older brother would finally marry a girl like Emery because my sister and Emery had a great relationship with each other. They were like sisters and spent a lot of time together. Even outside my parents' house, Emery and I would take my sister when we went to the movies or for a walk. In the evening, I received a message from Julia asking me to call her. During the phone conversation, Julia told me that our parents were very angry at how rude I had been to them. Because of these circumstances, they told her, "If we don't go to the holiday, you're not going anywhere either." My sister said this through tears. I became very angry with my parents because they allowed themselves too much. I told Julia that I would settle the matter. The next morning, I went to my parents' house with my girlfriend. Emery was with me to support. I walked into my parents' house and immediately exploded at them for their ridiculous behavior. I stopped restraining myself and said everything that was on my mind. My dad started making excuses and saying that this decision was made by him and my mom because Emery and I didn't want to compromise for them. If Emery and I had agreed, then no one would have had a problem. I told my dad, "You can't involve my sister in our personal relationship." He said, "Yes, I can, because I am her dad, and until Julia is of age, I can give her a ban on anything I think is wrong." This made me extremely angry. My wife also got involved and said, "You shouldn't be so cruel to your daughter, since you are already on the verge of losing your normal relationship with your son. You should at least think about your younger daughter." My mom and dad were quiet and thought about what Emery had said. In the end, they said that they did not give permission for Julia to go. I realized that we would not solve anything that day, so Emery and I left. The day before the wedding, we figured out how my sister would go to the party. At lunchtime, Julia told her mom that she was going for a walk. When Julia came to the park, I picked her up in my car. The next day, we celebrated our marriage with Emery, where we had planned it before. My parents, however, decided not to come to the celebration. Although I did not withdraw my invitation, even despite what they said, our celebration was great and my sister is very grateful that she was able to attend my wedding. When my parents found out that Julia stayed at my house and attended my wedding, they almost went crazy and started texting me on my phone that I had kidnapped my sister. My parents think I'm a jerk who ruined their reputation with my stupid actions. Then my parents punished my sister for disobeying them. I don't think I did anything wrong. Bryson, your parents are the epitome of tyranny and control over people. When I was a kid, my brother and I suffered from our parents' rudeness. Everything they didn't like, my brother and I automatically had to dislike. My dad never asked my opinion in important situations until I was 20 years old. Until then, he thought I was too stupid to get permission to spend the night at my friend's house from university. I had to do all my homework for a whole week. My dad never gave me gifts for nothing, but he was very fond of punishing me or my brother for any misdeeds. For him, there were no words of apology. We always had to serve our punishment together. That's why I hate my dad now and don't want to see him. I was very happy when I got older and could live separately from my parents. I know very well that parents can easily ruin their children's lives for the rest of their lives. It drives me crazy. Delilah, I completely agree with what you said, that the conflict is between you two, and Julia should have nothing to do with it. But your parents are so stubborn that I am ashamed of them. Your father is a man who wants to control the situation, and if things don't go according to plan, he is unable to admit it and just starts to prove that he is right, regardless of the circumstances. Your parents think your family is proud and stupid, but at the same time, they can't even give you a pass on your wedding day seriously, and your dad says so sincerely that everything is your fault or your girlfriend's fault, but he is the cause of such conversations and conflicts. Can't your father and mother compromise with their son, at least on his holiday? If it's too difficult for them, then don't say, "You're a proud shit," because I can write the same thing about them and I will be right. Axel, you and your girlfriend did the right thing. Your sister deserves to be there for your wedding. Just imagine how Julia would hate her parents if she knew that they were the only reason she missed her brother's wedding. If I were her, I would be very angry with my parents and refuse to have any contact with them. Maybe I would even live in their house, but in protest, I would stop talking and eat one meal a day so that all the people would see how thin I was and start asking why, and I would tell everyone what jerks my parents are. Then I would completely ruin their reputation. That would be a fair payment for their behavior. Even though your mom and dad are right to give Julia permission, it's absurd to forbid her to go to her own brother's wedding. It's probably some kind of dementia. My next story. I have been living with my wife Quinn for over 7 years. We have a young son who is 6 years old and just starting school. I also have my relatives on my mother's side, my cousin Braden and his wife Neva. They recently had an accident in their house and asked my parents if they could stay with them. My parents have a small house, so they refused my cousin's family. When I found out that my cousin's house was almost completely burned down and his family had no place to stay, I suggested that Braden take his family and come to Quinn and I. My wife was not opposed to helping my cousin's family. I think it will take them more than 1 week to solve all their problems. But anyway, we agreed to help, especially since the Braden family has 2 children who are a little older than my son. I am surprised that no one in his family was hurt. 2 weeks after Braden was in my house, my wife came to me and told me that it was only 6 in the evening and that Braden and Neva were locked in the guest room. I said, "Darling, it's perfectly normal for grown people to want to be in a place where they can't be seen." But my wife started to push back and say that she didn't mind, only if Neva and Braden do their business at night, so the kids can't see or hear them. I told my wife that she was thinking too much about it. 4 days later, it happened again, but in a slightly different way. I came home from work at 7 in the evening because my boss asked me to stay late. I was a little hungry and in a bad mood when I got home. When it was dinner time, my wife poured me a big portion of porridge with cutlets. While I was eating, Quinn started complaining to me about my in-laws. Quinn said that she saw Braden and his wife go to the restrooms together today and spend almost an hour there. I said, "You're so curious what they're doing in there?" My wife said, "I'm really not happy that your relatives are playing Hunger Games every free hour. So please, talk to your cousin so that they don't do that anymore, at least when it's daytime." I saw that my wife was very upset about it, so I said I would talk to Braden. Although I didn't see a problem with it, the most important thing is that the children didn't hear anything unnecessary. The next day, I had the day off and decided to talk to my cousin Braden. While we were playing the console, I didn't know how to start a conversation about such things. I asked Braden, "How is your relationship with your wife now?" Braden said, "Not the worst." I'm like, "I hear you." There was some silence while we played. I thought about what to say next. After 2 minutes, I got up the courage and said, "Listen, Braden, my wife is very concerned that you and Neva often go to rooms and lock yourselves in them." My cousin paused the game and asked me what exactly was wrong with that. I told him straight up, my wife thinks the kids might hear or see them during their intimate activities. That's why Quinn asked me to talk to you. My cousin said, "I am well aware that there are 3 children in the house, so Neva and I do everything when the children will definitely not interfere." I said, "That's great that you thought of it that way, but for the sake of my wife, could you please do your work when the children are asleep?" Braden said that he and his wife would try not to provoke my wife. I thanked him and we continued to play. 2 days later, Quinn came to my room and said they did it again. I was a little upset that my cousin didn't keep his word. My wife said she snapped and started telling my cousin that he was not behaving properly with his wife. There was a conflict between them that was heard throughout the house. This all happened after my wife Quinn told me about what Braden had done. I was forced to come into the living room where the conflict was taking place. My wife started arguing with Neva. To be honest, it's one of the worst things to see happening in a family. Neva said that Quinn could not understand how difficult their relationship was. After all, she and her husband need to release their stress somehow after every day. After all, they have to go through a lot of paperwork to apply for compensation. My wife said that she sympathizes with their grief, but you have to have a conscience and keep your temper. Braden and I just stood there and watched the fight. The quarrel between the women lasted no more than 10 minutes, but a lot of bad words were said. My wife said that Neva was acting like a fool because she only thinks about her own pleasure, not the safety of her children. Neva said that Quinn is just upset that she doesn't have such a busy life, So now she is offended and saying such words. In the end, my wife snapped and told my in-laws to be out of our house in 2 days. Of course, I told them not to take it seriously and to stay as long as they needed. Now, my wife is angry with me and says that I didn't support her when she needed it. I tried to tell Quinn that she was wrong, but every time I did, Quinn got even more angry with me. Quinn still thinks I'm a bad husband for standing up to her. Maybe I should have supported her, but definitely not in kicking out my relatives. Roman, your wife is a selfish goat. Neva is absolutely right in her observations and words. What about your intimate life with Quinn? Maybe Quinn is really evil and is watching the Bradens so closely because she is jealous of them. In any case, Quinn's actions are very disgusting. She knows very well that your family's house burned down, and they have a lot of problems right now, so they just need some time alone. But your wife wants to stick her nose in other people's business. It doesn't even matter that your relatives came to your house with certain rules. Braden and Neva have not done anything wrong or inappropriate for your wife to have the right to throw such harsh words at them and have them leave within 2 days. You should be a little surprised that your wife could be so mean and nasty. After all, Quinn was about to kick the people whose house burned down out into the street, along with their 2 children. That's not a justifiable act. Ivy, what a horror, 2 adults locked in a room. Urgently call everyone there because something is happening. We have to call the police or the emergency services. That's how I see your wife acting so aggressively. Your wife should know that there are adults in her house who are not stupid and know when to be alone and when not. So Quinn needs to come down to earth and apologize to Braden and Neva. I wonder how your wife would react if Neva saw something like that between the author and Quinn. I'm sure your wife would have made the excuse that you're in your own home and can do what you want. I think that your wife is just an evil woman who does not know how to empathize with other people. Quinn should go to your relatives and beg them to forgive her. As for you, as a husband should have supported your wife at least by sitting with her and listening to all of Quinn's complaints. Perhaps if she had told you everything she thought, she would not have started a conflict with your cousin's family. The author of the story is partly to blame for this situation. Now I want to tell a different story. I have a big family. My parents gave birth to me, my brother and sister. I am now 33 years old and the middle child in our family. My brother Evan is 3 to 4 years older than me. My sister Sadie is 3 years younger than me. Each of them has their own families and even children. My older brother is married to his girlfriend Lydia. They have 3 daughters, each one 2 years younger than the other child, and my brother's oldest daughter is now 11 years old. My sister is not married but has a boyfriend and is currently planning a wedding with her boyfriend. I have my wife Piper and 1 son who is now 8 years old. Our family is doing quite well in communicating with other members of our extended family, although in recent years our relationship with my brother has become somewhat worse. In 13 days, it will be my brother's birthday. I am a pastry chef and I know how to make cakes or homemade pies. My task for Evan's party was to bake a cake weighing 3 kilograms. I told him it was too much for 15 people. Evan replied that not all the people would want to eat the cake, so there would be plenty left over for everyone. I know that my brother has a sweet tooth, but even for him, it's a lot. Finally, 6 days before the party, I started thinking about the style of the cake and what kind of design it should have. My brother told me that I needed to be careful with the ingredients for the cake because his girlfriend has a problem with sugar. When cooking, I took this little detail into account and realized that I needed to put half as much sugar and focus on the cream, not the sugar. Then my brother even called me with 5 days to go and said he needed a very sweet cake. I told Evan that I wouldn't be able to make the cake very sweet because of his wife. Evan said that I had to come up with something to make it really good. With 3 days left, I started experimenting with the best way to make the cake. My brother and I had a small conflict about the cake. 2 days before the party, I told Evan, either we make a sweet cake and ignore his wife Lydia's problem, or I make a not-so-sweet cake so that Lydia can taste it. my brother started acting like a little kid and saying he only wanted a sweet cake. Even said, "Brother, can't you make a normal cake for everyone?" I said, "Evan, I already told you how I can do it." He got annoyed and said, "If that's the case, then I should think about buying a cake in the supermarket." I said, "I don't care how you do it." When there was one day left before the holiday, Evan wrote me a message on Facebook. "You can come to the party without a cake. I found a more gifted person than you. I don't need a cake from a bum like you." I was very upset by my brother's words, but I was very curious who managed to make the cake my brother wanted. I came with my family to my brother's holiday. Surprisingly, there weren't as many people as Evan had invited, but there were still a lot of people. The table was gorgeous. My brother's wife cooks very well and has some talent. After 2 hours of celebrating, my guests and I started singing a congratulatory song for my brother, and our parents started bringing out the cake. When I saw that cake, I was surprised. Evan had ordered a very lavish and large cake. At first glance, there were more than 3 kilograms in the cake. I was beginning to think that we would not be able to eat it in one day. My brother said, "I ordered this cake from the best candy company in our city, so you can have as many pieces of cake as you want." I only needed 1 spoonful to realize how much sugar was in it. I can say that the cake was 70% sweet. I noticed that Lydia didn't even try to eat the cake. My brother was trying to persuade Lydia to try it. Lydia did try the cake. 3 minutes later, she went to the restroom. As it turned out later, Lydia went to throw up. At the end of the holiday, I went up to my brother and said, "You wanted to make a beautiful cake so badly, but you ordered a sucky one. Even your wife wouldn't taste it. Then why did you put on that circus with me a few days ago?" Even said, "I did what I wanted. Now went away out of my way." The next day, Evan called me and accused me of making his wife sick all night because of the cake. I asked what was my fault. Even replied, "If you had agreed to make a normal cake, there would have been no problem." So now Evan thinks I'm an asshole who is to blame for his wife's problems, even though he doesn't care about the fact that I didn't mind making the cake. So what do you think? Ezekiel, your brother probably thought he could control you and humiliate you by having another baker make the cake. But in the end, he stepped into the trap himself. Fate justly punished your brother for his pride. It is very strange to me to read that Evan decided to make you the culprit in this situation. I guess it would be logical to make you guilty if your cake made Evan's wife sick. But the problem is that you didn't make that cake. But your brother decided to take the blame by making you guilty. At the beginning of the story, the author wrote that he doesn't have the best relationship with his brother. But now I understand why your relationship is bad. Your brother is acting like an idiot. Evan probably doesn't know how to recognize his own mistakes and thinks that his decisions are perfect. But most likely, he lacks the courage and bravery to admit his own mistakes. Xavier, I wonder if your brother's wife knew that you could have made the cake so she wouldn't have a problem. I think Evan kept this fact from her and just told his wife Lydia that you refused to make the cake and you were responsible to her. I don't like it when people act like royalty and are hard to please. It's very strange to me when grown men like Evan can't compromise or admit their own faults. It's very low of Evan to blame you. I'm sure Evan will be telling everyone what a jerk you are, and no one will even care if it's true or not. And then there will be a lot of rumors and doubts about you. It would be really great if you or your wife told Lydia that her husband treated her like a bastard. What did your sister say about the cake? I think she also thought it was incredibly sweet. I have no doubt that your brother is a jerk for not wanting to accept work from his brother. Maybe your brother deliberately wanted to argue with you to create a conflict. Now it would be great if everyone around you knew what your brother really did. You should relax because you are not to blame. Next story. I am now 32 years old and I am the chairman of a meeting for people with psychological trauma from accidents. I have a degree in psychology and I organize such events to help other people. It gives me pleasure and it is my hobby from work. My friends are sometimes surprised that I like spending time with people so much. About 10 people attend my therapy courses. I have a good income, so I am able to rent a special room, to organize meetings. The goal of my group is to improve people's condition and help them, to perceive what is around them. Different people come to my courses with different problems. Some people lost their house and belongings in the storm. Some people became victims of their own stupidity when they were reckless with fire. Sometimes their problems are severe, and sometimes it's not that bad. This month I was approached by a man who said he would like to come to my therapy. I never refuse such requests from people. I will call this man Everett. He was about 30 years old. When I talked to him, I was not able to ask him about his specific problem. But despite this, I sent him the location where he should go. I organize my events every Thursday at 7 in the evening, and it lasts about 2 hours. People tell their stories and give different versions of how things could have been. People's stories are very different, and I sympathize with them all. When we were sitting at this event, Everett arrived a little late. This man brought his little sister, who was 10 years old. I don't usually have children at my events, and the arrival of this little girl made the atmosphere a little more difficult for all the participants. But despite this, we had a good evening, and the little girl did not interfere with the evening. Although I could see that some adults found it difficult to tell some of their own mistakes in front of the little girl. And as an organizer, I could not allow such situations to exist all the time. In fact, Everett was sitting a little to the side and was busy doing his own thing. More precisely, Everett just put on his headphones and almost slept through the meeting. I tried to ask him something, but Everett said, "I didn't come here because of my own problems, so please don't bother me." That evening, after our meeting ended, I asked Everett to stay for a few minutes. I started the conversation by thanking him and telling him, "Everett, I appreciate you taking the time to address the problem. My course is designed to help people overcome their problems that they will not solve on their own. Your sister is one of those people who needs a solution, because a few years ago, she was attacked by a big dog and bitten by a little girl. But my courses are designed for older people, and it will be difficult for me to help a little girl that young. Moreover, some adults are a bit shy about talking about their problems when a child is sitting across from them. Everett, it would be better for you to take your sister to a child psychologist than to come here with her, because a child psychologist will be able to help the girl better than my courses. Of course you can come here if you need to, but next time come alone. I'm sorry to have to tell you this. This decision will be better for everyone." Everett responded to my words, "I don't understand what the problem is. You are a psychologist and you can help my sister. Adults go there to share their experiences. My sister can listen to the stories of these people and realize that her problems are not so bad. So you are acting like a selfish person, and in general, all these people are just a bunch of big whiners who can't solve their problems. You are a flock of sheep, and you are the shepherd of these sheep. If you have no desire to help a little girl, then say so. Why are you making up that people don't like the presence of my sister? I think you are not as good a psychologist as you say you are, and you are right. I will not come here with my sister again. Go on with your people who are not capable of talking in front of other people." With that, Everett turned around and walked away. I never saw him again after that. I had a great meeting the next day, and nothing interrupted me. Even one woman thanked me for not having a little girl at the meeting today, because it was impossible to share her experiences with her. At that moment, I felt relieved and realized that I had done the right thing. After all, for some time my conscience had been gnawing at me for Everett's refusal. Ariana, you are not to blame for what happened and what Everett said to you. If that man just wanted to save money on a psychologist for his sister, then the question is only for him. Everett started to make you feel guilty, even though he knew that there are no children. These meetings and that adults mostly go there. In general, Everett acted very rudely. He could have at least thanked you. You're not throwing them out when they came to you, because you had every reason not to allow Everett and his sister to come to your meeting. But you acted in love and did not become angry. In spite of your kindness, Everett found something to blame you for. Doctor, you must not think that you are to blame. The fact that you were tormented by your conscience is a sign that you are a conscious person who thinks about other people. Parker, this guy has a great idea. He brought his sister to psychotherapy, and started sitting with headphones on and napping. When you started asking him to be active, Everett almost sent you away in front of everyone. Everett is an asshole who wanted to spend his time with double the benefit. He got some sleep and his sister got some therapy. This story is similar to when there's a party, but you're not invited. You ask permission to come there, and they decide not to refuse you. When you get there, you start acting strange, and then you go to one of the rooms and spend the whole holiday there. Everett did something similar, but in a much worse way. He thought that he had found a great place where someone would solve his sister's problems, and he didn't have to do anything for her sister.